Okay, so so far we've gone through videos demonstrating how to kind of get things set up, a little bit about how things are working, and considerations. Now, I've now set things up to demonstrate how do you get this data into your database, and part of this is to also demonstrate that, like, although you may not want to use the approach of saving these sort of data from API connector objects within your database directly as like a field of a list of objects, or even if you don't even want to do them like individually as single fields, you still just feel more comfortable with the sort of legacy approach to bubble database structuring and how we work with it. Or there's just simply a use case where the API connector objects just don't work, right? It's not something that's intended to be able to necessarily, for everybody, for every use case, replace what is the bubble database. So there is functionality in it that allows you to leverage it to still make use of a lot of its power, especially with the ability to let people essentially create objects in the client side and then be able to process them, update them, save them, whatever you might do. So in this, I'm not going to go through how you set this up, verbatim in a step-by-step. I'm expecting that people already know this. What I have done is I have, within the API connector, I have set up another call directly to this particular Bubble app database. And so this is a bulk update. It allows you to create more than one item in your Bubble database directly at a time. So I don't know the restrictions on how many at once, but I think it's a pretty large number. Ultimately, the use of the Bubble API for bulk creation of data entries in like your traditional Bubble database structure is a workload unit optimized way, and obviously in return optimized for performance method of being able to still work with the Bubble database and creating things at once. It also allows for a function that doesn't exist in Bubble directly through workflow actions. There is no bulk create things action. And so sort of legacy approaches there that we're not already utilizing this bulk API call, we're likely doing things that are just not really as performant and so therefore not optimized, such as maybe doing a recursive backend workflow, or maybe some other kind of method that the developer came up with. So with this too, like, just because it's bulk doesn't mean it is incapable of being used to create one. So I would say that, like, you could essentially utilize this still as the concept of like a data warehouse for modularity within your build, to say that there's just kind of one location within your app, reusable element, where all data processing is happening. If you are not wanting to just leverage Data Jedi for objects in the database, but just like regular legacy Bubble data stuff, you're able to pass these things from anywhere within your app to your data warehouse, where then your data warehouse is going to run your API calls into your Bubble database in a workload unit optimized manner that also allows you to still build with the same data structure you're comfortable with, because that's what you know, and at the same time be able to modularize your build, and that way would increase your capacity to maintain it and extend it in a sort of quick and easier manner. So there's a lot of benefit to understanding how to use the Bubble API, not just this bulk create, but not going into every single detail as step by step. You can get in and you can see what's going on here. We need our content type as a header, authorization, it's a bearer with your API token from the setups. You're doing a raw body type and the data type is text, and you set up your dynamic expression this way. You're going to need to initialize with a compressed one item array, which is essentially the same array that you would be using to initialize within your sort of API thing structure, right? So very simple and easy. You just be kind of taking that, and you could go into a system like JSON lint and just say to it here, like, okay, let's first just validate that that's correct. Okay, great. Now let's compress it. We've got it. Copy it. Get back into your app. Throw that into your initialization area, and then go ahead and initialize. And now you have a bulk create action available to your application to still work with your traditional legacy bubble database structuring. And so this is very flexible. And Data Jedi gives you this power to be able to transfer all the things anywhere within the app. So what I've done in this workflow here, which is attached to this demonstration page. So the Data Jedi, there's just one of them on the page, and it has my JSON. I did go into ChatGPT and I asked it to provide me the JSON, and so this is the JSON I'm working with, right? I've stripped out my metadata. It is something that I need to look into and update the functionality of the plugin to basically be able to not get things mixed up with the metadata of bubble when you are making use of the exposed value being the bubble API ready JSON. So this one just works fine. So I've got these 100 items from ChatGPT to work with. I pasted them directly into here, and I have here our 3 different repeating groups, and one of them is coming directly out of the Data Jedi elements value list. The other one is doing a search for the contacts that are inside of the database that are holding on to our new type of data there. And it is empty at the moment. And then in this workflow, we are then running through and creating via the API the data inside the database as a sort of legacy approach. And that's this repeating group right here. You can see we're saying search for contact legacy. And what I've done with the contact legacy here, I just use the same exact type of values. And a future release of the plugin will make it so that when you add something in, we can have a function to just automatically create the data structure inside your bubble app directly for you. But inside of here, you can see that we've got no entries right now. There's 0 entries. So basically with this design here, we'll see them immediately within the first repeating group because that's just an immediate conversion from the element on page load. And so that leads to like great ways to basically, let's update the way that we work with what are traditionally option sets in Bubble, right? Like how frustrating is it that still today, after how many years of option sets having been released, do we not have the ability to just like bulk create them? Well, now you do with Data Jedi, because when you just drop your Data Jedi element onto the page like it is here, and you just drop your JSON into there, you have like an option set preloaded, and depending upon how you want to get creative and utilize it, you can put it into like your data warehouse and say like, yeah, it's everywhere within the app, or you can kind of compartmentalize it and specialize it to only be loaded onto a particular page or reusable element where that particular set of options might be necessary. And having multiple ways to work with LLMs and things like that to make updates and changes and be able to have IDs, it just so many potential use cases there where you could just basically bypass option sets completely. That also too leads into another functionality of app text, right? You bypass app text and make it so much easier. So that is what's happening within the setup right now, okay? So as I come into here, I'm just gonna refresh this page. All right, so when I click this button, now I have the ones that are from the database. You can see how much quicker they showed up than the traditional ones showed up. And that's not based on like how much faster it is to fetch those that are in this new data structure. It was related to how much longer it took for Bubble to get the data into there, and in conjunction, how long it took for them to fetch it. So you can see inside of here now, coming into the database, that we've got our legacy 100 items in there, and awesome. So even if you weren't wanting to make use of having data like this, you can still make use of having data like this, and be able to pass this around all over your application, and get it into your app when you need to. Future versions of the Data Jedi will be having things to address other lack of functionality in native Bubble around data processing that people need, such as bulk modification, right? Like our Bubble API right now is only allowing us to do a bulk create. We should have like a bulk edit. So there'll be a lot more functionality coming out into the plugin to help really allow people to utilize Data Jedi how I imagine it, which is like it's a tool in your tool belt, right? And if you're not carrying it around in your tool belt, or you're just not really having as many tools that are useful within Bubble today, and in that sense, like there's going to be tons of areas that people will find it as probably not optimal, and so therefore would likely not be utilizing it for those use cases. But there's so many other potential use cases and ways in which we can leverage it to make functions that currently aren't possible. So in the next video here, I will be actually demonstrating the performance issues, or differences rather, and the workload unit differences as well.